Welcome, everyone, to our special edition of A Screw Loose with Robert Bigio. Robert Bigio is not only known for his flute making, his head joints, crowns, flutes, and stoppers, but he's also a well known writer on the flute and flute manufacture, and was for 5 years the editor of the Journal of the British Flute Society. He's the author of two books on the flute: Readings in the History of the Flute, a selection of writings from 19th century London, and the recently published Rudel, Rose, and Cart, The Art of the Flute in Britain. So, we are so excited to have Robert today on our show. He's going to share all of his knowledge on the development and the history of the flute. He's got a wonderful presentation put together. He's got a pile of flutes to show us. And I'm just so excited to see here and go along for the ride. So, welcome, Robert. Thank you so much for being with us today, and we are just beside ourselves to have you here. Thank you.
And I'm absolutely terrified, but
We're friendly.
share my screen, and it's that one. Can you all see that now?
We'll give it a minute.
Oh, hang on.
There it is.
There you go.
Yep, we've got you.
Yay.
Good. So this is a brief history of the flute. I'm going to show how we got from here. Can you see the cursor, by the way?
Yes, we can. Yep.
I decided to start in 1700 as a place to start. I'm going to get from here to here. Now, this bottom flute, this metal flute, the silver flute, we'll all recognize. It's a standard flute. Everybody plays one just like it. The interesting thing is this flute was actually made in 1861 by Louis Lott, and the flute hasn't changed much at all since. There are a few trivial little changes, but apart from that, if you ask anyone, what does a flute look like? That's what they're going to show you. I still need to keep looking at my notes here. It's a fantastic piece of design. It does everything we need to do, and it will not need to be replaced by anything until it stops being able to do what we want to do. I hope you might get somebody to talk about Eva Kingma's quarter tone flute one day, because that is the next development. Perhaps Eva herself would be great.
That would be fabulous.
I have a couple of disclaimers. This is a talk about the flute in, there's no other term for it, European art music. I know that other cultures exist. This is about this flute. And the other thing is, in the period I'm talking about, men played the flute, women played the piano. If I slip up and say he or him, please don't get upset, because they did. It was like that, and it goes back to about the 16th century, if I can get this thing to move on. There we go. This is about 1600. Lovely little image. You see this beautiful woman playing the virginals and a man playing the flute. And a couple of hundred years later, in England, Gilray was able to produce, I think he did 3 caricatures that included flute players. And in every one, the man plays the flute, the woman plays the piano. So please don't get upset with me.
Noted.
No, I'm now going to make a huge jump of many centuries, and I'm going to explain why we play the flute that we play on, and why it's good enough. This is a flute by Alexander Murray. There's a nice picture of Alex there in the corner, smiling as he always does. Now, this is a variation on the Boehm. It's acoustically a Boehm flute, but it has a much more complicated mechanism, and it's probably better. There's a reason why we don't want to play this thing.
The Flute cluster?
Even if it is better, and I'm sorry, Alex, but the thing is, if you, by the way, can everybody else hear you laughing, or do they just hear me?
Oh, no, they can hear us.
They can hear us too. They get to hear all of us feedback.
They're laughing too, I hope.
The thing is, with the Murray flute was designed 60 years ago. It's probably better than a standard Boehm, but if you're going to play this, you have to learn a new fingering system, which is a problem. It has an open D sharp, never mind an open G sharp, and it's going to put off lots of people. If you want to pick up this flute, you'll have many fewer instruments to choose from. If you're a professional player, you'll probably need a spare flute. You'll need a piccolo. You might need an alto and a bass flute. And you need somebody who's going to be able to maintain the thing for you.
Mhm.
And if you want to sell it, not very many people want to buy it. So there are powerful reasons to stick to the standard instrument. Let me now just, what does it say here? You do understand I'm absolutely terrified by all this.
You are doing a fabulous job.
Oh,
We're so grateful to have you here sharing your knowledge with us.
bless you.
Yes,
Am I back to human now? Yes, I am.
you
Yes.
are.
Yes, now you're good.
Here we are.
Okay. Now we're going to accept a new product if we really need it, unless it's a fashion item. You might want to buy a new overcoat because your coat is out of fashion. You might buy a new car because you want to show off a new car. But if it's something like, let's say, a central heating boiler, you're not going to replace it because a better one has come up. You're only going to replace it when you have to because the old one has died. And so it is with the flute. You'll upgrade if you have to, if you can no longer play the music that you want to play on it. There is an exception. Flute players like bling. They always have. And I'm going to show you. Most of the flutes I'm going to show you are covered in bling, or they are 100% bling. You'll see. And there are pressures against changing. Musicians are very conservative. The best example I can give of that is a violin. It doesn't have to look like it does. They've looked like this for over 400 years. A violin today looks just like the one Amati made in 15, whatever it was. But it would be a very brave fiddle player who would turn up in an orchestra with something that looked like a shoebox. So we're very conservative about these things. The other important thing is technique. If you consider improvements to a piano over the years, they're all inside the piano. And when you play it, you don't have to change anything. With a flute, you probably have to have a new fingering system. And there's a strong reason why you won't want to do that. So I've spoken about the Murray flute. Let me go back to sharing my screen if I know how. Hello?
I was trying to figure out all the places to put
There
my
we go.
pinky on that.
Yeah, for the record, I would buy that. I want that.
How many pinkies do I need to grow?
I just want to know how many thumbs I need.
Well, it's very interesting about the open D sharp because I'm going to show you a flute made in the 1840s that had an open D sharp, and it didn't catch on for a reason I'll explain. Alex found a way. Of course, if you have an open D sharp, your little finger isn't free to operate the rest of the foot joint.
Mm-hmm.
Alex found a way. Let me go on. There we go. So this is a flute by Bressan from about 1700. Bressan was a London maker. I'm not sure that this wasn't actually made in the same workshop that made flutes for Autoterre. A few things about it. It's bling already. It looks much better than it's much fancier than it really needs to. It won't play any better looking like this than it would if it looked like a broomstick. But flute players like things to look really kind of flash. So let me go on. It looks very much like this picture. Everyone knows this one. It's in the National Gallery. This flute looks the same and happens to be made of ivory. This painting too by Watteau. Again, he's playing an Autoterre type flute in 3 parts. Let me go on for another one. This is yet another Bressan flute at the Victoria and Albert Museum. This is a close-up. When I say bling, I really mean bling.
That's beautiful.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
This is a huge amount of work. I mean, this is a piece of jewelry. This isn't something to play on. This is something to show off. And we all do that. We still play gold flutes and platinum flutes, and we have diamond-studded things and engraving all over our instruments. Let me go on. This is a flute by Scherer, who I think made some flutes for Frederick the Great. It's about 1720. This one used to belong to Nick Shackleton. A number of people have made copies of it, and quite a few people think it's the best flute ever. I don't disagree. It's an absolutely fantastic instrument. It's now in a museum, so I'm not allowed to play it, but when Nick was still alive, I did. And it's
wow,
truly wonderful.
Why? What makes it so?
Is there an amount for that?
I don't know, but I've made a copy and I'll show you in a minute.
Great.
I don't know, but I had to have one.
This is a flute by Stainsby, who was the leading maker in London. Again, lots of bling. The thing is made of ivory,
Yeah.
it has silver ferrules. And to give you an idea of the sort of person he was selling to, whoever it was had his coat of arms engraved on the top.
Mm.
This would have been a very, very expensive instrument. And I know that Stainsby died very rich, so he did very well. Let me go on. I made a copy of this one. Not in ivory, of course, because we don't want to kill elephants, so it's made of wood. I don't have a coat of arms, but I do have a rose engine.
I love that
Yeah,
pattern.
that thing is so cool.
Beautiful. So
So
beautiful.
I made a crown, and then I also have a straight line engine, so I made another crown because I do like to play with my toys.
Excellent.
And
Gorgeous.
at this point, I'm going to go live, so I'm going to stop sharing. And we'll go back to
There
this.
you go.
Yeah.
We'll go back to this flute here. This is
Okay.
my copy of the Scherer flute I just showed you, but made of
Oh,
wood.
nice.
Okay. Now, most people will know what I'm about to say, but one or two won't, so I'm going to say it. The trouble with a flute like this is you have to put the holes where you can reach them. That means this hole in particular for the ring finger and this one have to be further up the tube. They really want to be there, but you wouldn't be able to reach it.
Hmm.
So it's further up, that makes it sharper, which means the maker makes the hole smaller,
Mm.
which means it's weaker.
Mhm.
Also, to play any, this flute will play a D major scale. If you pick up one finger after another, it's D, E, F sharp, and so on. It's a D major scale. If you want to play a G sharp, you would play an A and put down a bunch of fingers to flatten it.
Mhm.
More of a problem when you're trying to play an F because you don't have much to flatten. It's possible, people do it, and people did it for about 100 years. So it's not impossible to play this in tune. It's quite easy to play it in tune in D major and G major. You probably find that a lot of 18th century music is written in D major and G major.
Mhm.
Bach, on the other hand, wrote things in all sorts of very peculiar keys and extremely difficult stuff. He wouldn't have written that if people couldn't play it.
Hmm.
So I do need glasses, that's the trouble. So the holes aren't evenly spaced, and this is a problem, and we have a problem with cross fingerings, which are going to be quite weak. Now, the next stage, this is a flute by Richard Potter, London maker. This is quite advanced. First of all, he's got 4 keys, not just one. This one had 1 key, just to give you a D sharp.
Mhm.
This one has 4. There's the D sharp, there's an F natural key. You play E and open the key to get an F natural. There's a G sharp key, and there's a B flat key. So you probably can't see that, the B flat key.
I can see.
Wow.
He also put on a tuning slide. This is his patent flute. There are lines there, and they're numbered. You pull it out to whatever number that is. You can adjust the screw cork thing
Oh,
there,
wow.
move the cork in and out. And at the other end, there's a foot register. And that's got lines on it as well, and they're numbered.
Beautiful. I love it.
So
And-
neat.
He gave very clear instructions on what to do and how to do it. Very clever maker. The pads on this thing, just by the way, again, it's his own invention. These are the first pewter pads. Pewter
Okay.
They're not soft, they're made of pewter. They actually work on this one.
Wow. You get to be your own flutist and your own percussion section.
Indeed. I was talking about bling. This also is by Richard Potter. And this one, I know the date because he engraved the date 1783.
Look at that.
Wow.
Here, this one's made of ivory. As you can see, it has silver ferrules and silver keys, 6 of them this time because it goes down to C. And when I say bling, I'm not sure if you can see that, but all the keys are engraved.
Oh, wow.
Oh, neat. Yeah, you can just barely see it on the.
Okay.
So neat.
This would have cost someone a lot of money. Expensive flute. Let's move on. Sorry, before I forget, the trouble with the F natural is you want to get from D to F.
Yes.
It's a problem. It's not going to be easy.
Yeah.
So let's move on a couple of decades. This one is by Millhouse, sometime 1810, 1820, something like that. Now he's got the same keys that you saw before, down to C.
Mhm.
He has the little F natural key here, so you play E and open that to get an F. He's also got a long F here,
Mhm.
so that makes it easier. That means you can do
Right.
that. A G sharp, the B flat key as before, and a C natural key. Play B, open this, you get a C natural. And we'll go on. This, for example, this is a flute by Rudel and Rose of about 1830. It's pretty much the same.
Yeah.
The holes are a bit bigger. But this was a standard flute from the 1820s to 1850.
And how many keys is that one?
Eight.
8 keys. Okay.
Now, this is a standard flute of the
Mhm.
time. Many makers made them, very good ones. What's interesting is they competed on quality, not on price. They were trying to make a better flute than the other guy. And these flutes were expensive, as I'll show you in a minute. But you always want to be able to upsell. So, I'll show you some really blingy ones in a minute. But Rudel and Rose, I didn't have room on my table, but I have one that goes down to B natural, and I have one that goes down to B flat. And I also have two of them that have a patent head joint. I'm sorry, it's in the next room, but on the patent head joint, when you turn the crown, it lengthens the head joint and moves the cork.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, neat.
I've seen that patent paperwork. That's really cool how they did that. That was really clever.
If you want to see what's inside, I can show you.
Yes, yeah.
Of
Wait.
course.
Sure.
Yeah, that's a really clever kind of thing they did. Yeah, it's complicated.
This is a
I
dead
can't
one.
even imagine.
This is a dead one. And what's inside is this. This is a fine screw here that will move the stopper in and out.
Okay.
And this is a 4-start screw. The 1-start screw has 1 spiral, 2 start
Yeah.
have 2 spirals. This has 4.
Mhm.
So 1 revolution of the nut will move it 4 times as far. And
Got
they've
it.
worked it out so that lengthening it and moving the cork will be correct. And the way it works is there are 2 tubes, one inside the other. And this is attached to the inside one. So when you turn this, it pulls
It's like a
it.
telescoping kind of thing.
Yes.
Wow.
And
Yeah,
I expect
it's a clever thing.
I don't expect Rudel and Rose made this. This is probably made by a scientific instrument maker. This is the sort of thing you would have on a microscope or a telescope.
Too
That's
cool.
really neat.
Fascinating.
Might not find many engineers today who would know how to make a 4-start screw.
Right.
Back together.
And I love that someone saw that and thought, let's put that on a flute. How can we use that?
There was a
applaud them.
Facebook thread. There was a Facebook thread earlier this week about how flute players are like, ooh, or like technicians are like, ooh, you know, that there's the traditionalist and there's like, ooh, there's a new material made by NASA. We should have that. This is like totally one of those examples of, ooh, we could take some kind of high techy fancy thing and we could put it on a flute and it would be amazing. I love it.
I think I need to go. Hang on a minute. Do I now? What does my paper say?
Follow the paper.
Yes, I
I
have.
will derail you.
Now back to the PowerPoint is what it tells me. So
Right.
my screen.
It's not very organized, hasn't this?
So while you're pulling up the screen, to be Captain Obvious here, with each key added, the tone hole got closer to being in the right place that it needed to be, right? Is that the ultimate goal of the keys?
The ultimate goal of these keys is to allow you to play to play a chromatic scale.
Chromatic.
Oh, okay.
These holes, it's a very good question. I'm pleased you said that because I forgot. These holes are still in the wrong place.
Mhm.
They still have to be where you can reach them.
Right.
And that's where we're coming to in a minute. Now, let me,
What I love about all the keys is it's like you can see where they're like, okay, we created a problem. Now we have to add something to solve that. Oh, okay, now that made a problem. We need to add something to solve that.
It starts to look like something out of Dr. Seuss. So
Yes.
I like it. Oh, very cool.
I stuck this in because every other flute I'm talking about is English, and I thought I'd show a French one. This is a Godefroy of 1820-ish. This is from Bergeron's book on turning. He includes a chapter on making flutes. And interestingly, the flute he describes is pretty well identical to the real thing, except his engraver put the G sharp key the wrong way round and the F key the wrong way.
Oh no.
Grow longer fingers.
It's left-handed.
It's not a left-handed flute. That's the weird thing.
You know,
Actually,
if you don't get it right the first time, try again.
I'm all confused. Right, let me carry on. The flutes were very expensive. There was an absolutely huge market. The one estimate is that 1 man in 10 in London played the flute. People became very, very rich, and these things were expensive. There were lots of money to be made. Monzani, for example, if you look here at the prices of an 8-keyed flute, was £12. An 8-keyed oboe, again with silver keys, £4, 14 shillings and sixpence. It's about 4 3/4 pounds. So it's 2.5 times as expensive to buy a flute. I don't believe it's 2.5 times as difficult to make an 8-keyed flute as an 8-keyed oboe. The thing is, it was a different market. Flute players had more money. They were rich. There were lots of flute players. And there was a flutist's magazine. There were books on the flute. I put this in because on Facebook and on the flute list, there's been a discussion about flutist and flautist and flautist.
Yes, always.
Yes, there always is.
This was 1827, and it was a flutist's magazine. In 1836, in the Times, it was announced that Charles Nicholson, the eminent performer on the flute, has been appointed flutist to the king. May I just say, I don't like either term, flautist or flutist or flautist. I say flute player.
There you go.
I wholeheartedly concur.
And flute music was advertised in the daily papers. These are all from the Times. Flute makers, flute teachers, flute music was being advertised. Drouet's flutes, flute and piano music by Toulouse and Drouet. This is Monzani and Hill's advertisement for their flutes. Another one by, this includes, this one in the top right-hand corner includes, this is from 1827. This is the very first mention of the word flautist ever. It's from
Oh,
Greg.
wow.
I was going to say, that's very cool.
Oh, that's cool.
I've seen it now.
If I can say, the Oxford English Dictionary insists that 1860 is the first use of the word flautist, or flautist, as they say in America.
Yes.
Flute player. Prowse advertising Nicholson's flutes, Lindsay's elements of the flute. This Mr. Braham, I don't know who he was, he's a pupil of Rudel. Very interestingly, down at the bottom, Mr. Sedlacek, a leading Viennese flute player who came to London. He was the player in the orchestra that performed some of Beethoven's symphonies. When I told you that men played the flute and women played the piano, if you look at the last line, it says he plays the flute accompaniments with ladies on the pianoforte to improve their style.
Excellent.
If you were a lady who wanted to impress your gentleman while playing flute and piano music, Mr. Sedlacek was the man to help you.
I see.
Let's go on. When I said people make a lot of money, this was the house that belonged to Thomas Keeve, instrument
Oh
maker.
my.
Good for him.
Well, it's still
Oh,
standing.
how the times have changed.
That's better. This house is still there. It's been cut up into flats, but it's now
Oh,
been
wow.
swallowed up by London. Thomas Kee's business was bought by Rudel Rose and Cart. That might give you an idea of how much money they were making too. So you could do well out of this. What's this one? When I talked about bling, this is serious bling.
Yes,
This is a flute by Rudel and Rose.
Gorgeous.
Yeah.
it is.
That's what we would call extra.
It is so extra.
There are other flutes by Rudel and Rose that have similar keys to this, and they're silver gilt. This one, I think, is gold. And there's a few reasons why I think so, but the only way to find out is to gouge a chunk out of it, which of course the owner wants to do.
May disapprove of.
This used to belong to Helen Valenza in Rochester, New York. And I know she's just sold her collection. I'm not sure where this flute is now. I couldn't afford to buy it. Serious.
Why are the tone holes red? Is that just a trick of the camera, or is that some sort of inlay?
No, that's yes, a
I
trick
think
of the
that's lighting.
Okay.
Yes. Ivory is interesting because it's slightly translucent.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. That makes sense.
Let me see where I am now.
Wow.
Okay. Now, at this point, things get exciting. Things get interesting. This is Boehm and this is Nicholson. Now, Charles Nicholson was sort of the James Galway of his day. He was a huge star. He played everywhere. He was the teacher that gentlemen would particularly like to go to. He charged a fortune for lessons. It said that he charged £1 an hour. A guinea is a pound plus a shilling.
Wow.
To give you an idea of how much money that is, and to give you an idea of how much £12 for a flute that you just saw, how much that is. In 1830, a laborer would earn £15 a year. A skilled person, a skilled man, a bricklayer or a joiner or something, might earn £70 a year.
Okay.
So £12 is a huge amount of money. 1 guinea for an hour for a lesson is out of the question for almost anyone. Now, Nicholson was the first flute in the orchestra of the Philharmonic Society, and in 1831, Boehm came to play. He heard Nicholson and was alarmed at how much sound he could make. He was very impressed by it. Now, I'm going to show you why. This is a Nicholson flute, again with bling. I had to put that on there. This is the crown. 4 views of a Nicholson flute. Huge holes, the biggest embouchure hole I've ever seen. Finger holes are enormous. This finger hole here, right-hand second finger, is bigger than some embouchure holes I've seen. I have a flute player friend who tells me that she can actually put her finger right inside it, never mind covering it.
Yeah, sounds like a problem.
Wow.
I would
It's
have.
loud.
And he, you can't quite see in this picture, but the wood here has been flattened because Nicholson would do glides, little glissandos.
Okay.
Oh, neat.
Easier to do. He also had a cutaway here with a bit of shark skin. Get a better grip on it. And on some of the flutes, there's a cutaway here, not on this one. By contrast, this is Boehm's 1829 flute. This is the pre-Boehm, if you like. This is the type of flute he would have brought to London. I have reason to believe it might actually be this very flute because there's something engraved on it.
Oh, wow.
Now, I should say this is the best simple system flute I've ever played. It's fantastic. And I owned it for a while, and then Rachel Brown played it and fell in love with it. And there's no way a dolt like me can keep it if someone like Rachel wants it. So Rachel has it.
Nice.
It's beautifully made, but a completely different animal, really. Let me show you another. This is the two of them side by side. These aren't quite to scale. You can see the embouchure hole is much smaller. The bore is much smaller. All the finger holes are much smaller, especially this. And it has a one-piece body. One advantage of that is it means he can put the G-sharp key where it should be, rather than where it has to be if there's a socket and tenon there. This G-sharp key is too far up the tube. I'll show you. Oh, no, you can't, because you can't see me.
We can see you, but small.
We can see you. Yes.
Anyway, it's okay. You can understand.
We can later.
Yes.
Now, Boehm saw this and, let me go back a bit. I did that wrong. Let me see if I can read you what he said. He explained that he was struck by the powerful tone Nicholson was able to produce, but he needed, as he said, Nicholson's extraordinary talents to play this flute, which Boehm thought had holes in all the wrong places.
All right then.
And he's right, because this flute is very hard work to play in tune. It's incredibly loud, and Nicholson was famous for making a huge sound. But it's not easy to play, whereas the Böhm flute is lovely, it plays itself. This got Böhm thinking what he could do. So this is the Garock and Wolf flute. There's quite a bit to unpick here. Christopher Garock was a German-born maker in London, and his partner was Robert Wolf. The story goes that Böhm visited him when he was in London. He had an idea of what he could do to improve the flute, and he did some experimenting in Garock's workshop. When he left, Garock tried to sell what he was calling a Böhm flute, which he made probably based on the things Böhm was playing around with. This is actually a monstrosity. There are some interesting things about it. One is that this key here is in the right place, and he's got an extension here.
Cool.
So you put your finger there and it closes the key there. That has had the effect of putting that hole in the right place. Here, instead of, as on flutes until then, you would play D, E, F sharp. Right hand first finger gave you an F sharp.
Yep.
Here he put a ring connected to this. So when you put your finger on that, it gave you an F natural. And in order to play an F sharp, you closed this, and there was this ghastly
Oh, so is this the person we have to blame for the F sharp trouble we all deal with now?
Yes, but Richard Cart had a solution, which I'll show you. This flute is a monstrosity. It really doesn't work. The pillars are too short. If you press on this key, there's too much bend in this, and you're very lucky if that key actually closes. In the museum now, I wasn't allowed to play it, but it used to belong to a friend of mine who tells me it's not a good instrument.
Okay.
The other interesting thing is, although Garock published a leaflet about it in which he said this is Garock and Wolf's Böhm flute, the stamp on this thing has been scratched out, and it just says Garock. I don't know what's going on. The other thing is, Mr. Wolf married Garock's daughter, and at the same time, it seems the partnership ended.
Oh, imagine that.
I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened here. What is interesting is that Böhm never mentioned Garock again, but he kept in contact and did some business with Wolf.
So is that flute making has always had some drama at some point? Does that sound like a fair
Clearly
statement?
so.
You could write a novel about it, Rachel.
There you go.
Scandalous.
Let me go on. So, a few months later, back in Munich, Böhm produced this. This is his 1832, what we call the Conical Bone flute. This basically has a crutch here, just to help you hold it up. It's not very popular since, but this, oh, go away. This basically has the same fingering system we now use. This is, if you press this down, it gives you an F natural because it closes that. And these two rings, which happen to be attached to this, will close the F sharp. So you can close that to get an F sharp or that. Okay? And there's no B flat thumb key. The difference between this design, and let me go back one, that is alarming.
Yeah.
I can't believe the person who designed this flute designed that flute. Okay? And now I must have a drink of water or else I'll lose my voice.
I suppose, you got to start somewhere, and, the first idea is rarely the best one, right?
Absolutely.
Well, it is a really good reminder, though, that it's not like somebody sat down and said, I think I'm going to make the flute that we all play now out of absolutely nowhere. You know, that it's always a progress and always sort of a trial and error sort of situation.
So one other thing to say about this is the bore of this flute is exactly the same as the simple system bone flute I showed you earlier.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, neat.
The holes are a lot bigger, and the flute plays a lot louder. This is basically the modern flute. It's still conical.
Mm-hmm.
So like the all these other flutes I've shown you, whoops, like this one, if you can see it,
Mm-hmm.
it's conical, it tapers down, you're blowing it at the wide end, and the head joint is cylindrical. Let me go on and see if I can remember what the next slide says. Ah,
A
yes,
flute.
hang on. This seems out of order. Let me go back. I forgot to say this is an open G sharp.
Ah.
Does everybody know what that does?
Yay.
Should I explain it?
Might as well.
We might as well for people who don't know, but we are all well versed.
Go live again and I'll show you.
I'm team open G sharp, so what can I say?
So this is a, whoops, this is a flute with an open G sharp. There's no duplicate hole at the back.
Mm-hmm.
So if you do this, it's a G sharp, and if you do that, it's a G natural. Okay, so
Yep.
it's reversed. Does this make sense?
Absolutely.
Okay. Let me put this guy back.
It's neat to see how far back that tradition goes, because a lot of us don't realize how the open G sharp was really pretty standard for a long time.
It's quite common in Britain, I have to say. William
Yeah.
Bennett plays open G sharp with many of his students.
Mhm.
So let me share the screen again. So this has an open G sharp. This caused a problem because, of course, all these old flutes work the other way. You play G and then you open the G sharp key.
Mm-hmm.
So in France, they didn't like this at all, and somebody wanted to make a closed G sharp flute. And this was done by Dorus. Now, this is a much later flute. This, in fact, was Taffanel's flute.
Mm.
And it was made for Dorus, so it's as good an example as I can find. There's no duplicate hole at the back. When you press this key, it'll close both of these.
Mm-hmm.
When it's closed, you can press that, and that is sprung against it, and it'll open. Does that all
Yes.
make
Yeah.
sense?
Yeah.
Yes.
That's I think that flute is on the inside of the cover of the Taffanel and Gobert daily exercises.
Yes, and
That's
this,
very cool. Flute.
I had this flute in my house once, and I blew into it, and then apologized to the spirit of Taffanel.
Doesn't hurt.
Did it rain locusts for a week afterward, or?
Oh, I don't think he has that power.
Okay.
Oh, this is
That's good to
good.
know. Good to know, because I have messed up a lot of his exercises over the years.
Yeah, I suddenly feel better because otherwise.
Okay, now, the bone flute wasn't the end of the story. Everybody wanted to invent something.
Hmm.
These are a few of the ones that I don't have. That me or you?
That's
Oh,
Okay.
it must be Sarah, for she has muted herself. I think
see.
there are airplanes or something going by her window.
These are some more flutes from the 1840s and 1850s. This is a flute by Cornelius Ward, who was a brilliant maker, but slightly mad. He again wanted to have correctly spaced holes. He had an open G sharp, and again he had an open D sharp. The trouble was, as I explained, if you have an open D sharp, you have to put your finger down to play D sharp, and that means your little finger isn't available to operate the other foot joint keys. So what he did is he put them up here for the thumb, and he had wires going down there.
That's an ambitious key length.
It is.
It's bizarre.
Makes me wonder if you knew anything about bassoons, because they
The-
have like 8 keys there.
he designed a bassoon as well, by the way.
makes sense.
See, and it all becomes logical.
He also has, I described the patent head joint before. He made something else that, again, if you pull the tuning slide out, he's got lines on it. And here he has what he called his Terminator, which is a stopper here. There's a cam inside there. When you turn this little knob here, it moves the cork, and there are numbers stamped on the thing. So if you pull it out to line number 4 and you line it up to line number 4, it should be correct.
That's brilliant.
That's
So you
really
can
They should really bring that back. Well, maybe not, but
no.
it's very cool.
This is a flute by William Card. Card was a flute player. He was, in fact, second flute player in the Philharmonic Society Orchestra, second flute to Nicholson. And he had a music shop. I don't think he made instruments himself. I have reason to believe that actually Ward made these. This again is beautifully made. This is his own system, evenly spaced holes, but no mechanism. So this is a finger-breaking stretch.
Yeah.
And here it's a Böhm style, D-E-F natural. This is almost unplayable for me. And here he's got what he called his melodeon. It's a tuning device. It's hard to see, and I'm sorry it's so dirty. It's in a museum and they never clean things. This is a rack and pinion gadget where you turn the knob and it moves the head joint in and out.
I love that today I've heard the terms cam and rack and pinion applied to a flute.
Mm-hmm.
That is very cool.
And this is another Card flute. This one is made of silver and it's engraved all over. It's possible that this is one that he showed at the 1851 exhibition.
It's so odd to see a silver flute with holes like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Now,
Ooh.
there are more in between flutes I'm going to show you. This is Böhm's cylindrical flute number 1. This is a flute very much as we play it now. It's acoustically what we play. The head joint is conical. The body is cylindrical with the same bore we have now. And he has the same fingering system that he used on the Conical Bone flute. So this is the granddaddy of them all. Again, ring keys. He sold the rights to make this flute to Godefroy in Paris and to Rudel and Rose in London. This is one by Rudel and Rose. Now, at this point, I'm going, do I want to go back? Oh, no. We'll come to that in a minute. I'm going to stop sharing this and show you some more flutes here of what else happened. Because there were other interesting instruments that were made. Now, the problem with the Böhm flute is that you have to learn a new fingering system, and this upset people. So lots of people tried to make something that would allow you to keep simple system fingerings, but have the keys evenly spaced. This is the simplest one, and in many ways the best. This is by Sycamore. And what he did was similar to what Böhm did on that 1831 flute. He's got extensions here and here. Can you see those?
Yes.
So that puts the A and the E holes in the right place. Interestingly, too, these are beautifully made. His flute maker was a man named John Hudson, extremely clever. This key, the thumb key, the G sharp key, and the D sharp key are the same. These two keys are the same, and the key cups unscrew.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so he's got 2 sizes. So it's modular in a way, brilliantly made. And this foot joint, I'm not sure if you can see it, I think it's absolutely gorgeous.
Yes.
Okay.
So
Wow.
elegant.
Yes.
So, Sycamore flutes were taken up by Joseph Richardson, who was one of the leading players, and he continued to play it to the end of his life, and also by Robert Sidney Pratton, until Pratton, let me get this flute wherever I put it. This is it. Pratton then stole Sycamore's Flutemaker and started making his own. This is the flute, the sort of flute that Pratten himself played. I have a picture of Pratten holding a flute just like this. It might even be this one for all I know. Again, it's conical, but quite a big bore. You can still play with simple system fingerings, but it's a very complex mechanism. And again, very beautifully made. Players of Irish music love Pratten flutes, but he also made simple system ones. These are much beloved of Irish players. This is a particularly good one too. There are more. Well, I mean, this is a bit out of order. This is a Rudel and Rose Conical Bone flute, again with an open G sharp. A bit later than the one you saw, and it's more like a modern one. It has trill keys. I don't think this flute was ever played.
That's
even the
fascinating.
case is in perfect condition. And I just dropped something. Hang on. How are we doing for time, by the way? Are we okay?
Yeah, I mean, we can stop in 12 minutes on the hour, or we can keep going a little past that. I do have an appointment shortly thereafter, but
Okay.
the other three can possibly carry on.
No, I will stop talking in a minute then.
Oh, I wish I hadn't scheduled that appointment.
We'll
There's
just
more.
have to maybe invite you back for more later if you're up to
That, yes.
Richard Cart had more ideas too. This is Cart's, how do I describe this? He called it his old system. This is basically a conical bone flute, but with a simple system fingering mechanism.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow.
Also made by Rudel and Rose. And have I got any more? Yes, he made a metal one too. Is this it? He made metal ones.
Look at that. You know, we're so trained to expect all of the tone holes to be in one line, like in a row, that to see just that one missing
Anything
in the middle, it's just like, oh, hurts
little
my brain.
freaky.
Yeah.
Now, the way this isn't a bone flute, the way it is, first of all, it is cylindrical with a conical head joint. What makes it not a bone flute is that the keys are not all open standing. On a standard bone flute, all the holes below the one you're playing stand open. In this case, they don't. They're closed. Okay.
Interesting.
So there's a couple more I'm going to show you. Where am I now? This one. Now, Richard Cart then realized that if you were going to have to learn a new fingering system, he could come up with one better than Boehm's.
There you go.
This is it. It is. This is his 1851 patent. Again, D, E, F sharp, but the all fingers off note is D, not C sharp.
Oh, neat.
Okay.
It has an open G sharp. It has a back F natural, so you can play F natural in a number of ways. You can play E and then open that little key at the back. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or you can play F sharp and close this key. Now, you're using your little finger to play G sharp, and how are you going to get there? You can't. So what he did was he connected it to there.
Oh, look at that.
Oh.
So when you close that, your finger is free to do this.
Wow.
So effectively, though, is a split E.
Yes, right,
Yeah.
exactly.
That's neat.
Right. Two more, and then you could then that's the end.
Flute, more flute.
More flutes.
This is fascinating, and I mean, so many people. This is like the first time they'll ever get to see any of this stuff. So it's amazing. Thank you.
My favorite of them all. This is an 1867 patent flute, again by Richard Cart. This one is made by Rudel Cart.
Oh, one piece body and foot.
One piece body. Similar to the 1851, but instead of having a long F, he put them both up here.
Okay.
So what he's given you is the option of playing F the Bone way or F sharp the other way.
Smart.
Oh, I want one of those.
Also,
That's very
this
cool.
is the best system ever. as on the 1851, the back F natural does two things. It also closes the B flat key.
Okay.
This makes it it's much more useful than that
Yeah.
little bone flute
For sure.
system. And one final one.
Rachel.
What about so were the 1867 system piccolos much different than the flute design? Did they have to make some changes to fit all those keys into a smaller body, or was it largely the same design? Yeah, one of those.
That is so
really
neat.
exciting. A D flat high pitch piccolo doesn't have an awful lot of room to fit all those keys in.
That is a lot of keys.
There's already enough difficulty with piccolo clearances.
And finally, there's the Radcliffe flute. Now, this was designed by John Radcliffe, who was the first flute in the Covent Garden Opera Orchestra. He was married to an Australian woman who was unwell, so they moved to Australia. Because of that, I think that so many Australians play Radcliffe system flutes. It's similar to the 1851, but it has a closed G sharp, and the all fingers off note is C sharp, not D.
Okay.
It's a very good system. The Radcliffe. Well, the next thing I'm going to do I have a minute for this?
Of course.
Oh, you can't hear that. I have to share this. Just a minute. Just a minute. Share. Okay, this is Eli Hudson playing an 1867 system piccolo. Do I have time to play the whole thing? It lasts about 3 minutes. Maybe I'll just play a bit of it.
Sure.
Stop that.
Wow. That's so great.
Absolutely amazing player. This is John Amadio, who played, he's an Australian who played a Radcliffe system flute, and he was still playing in the 1960s.
Wow.
Absolutely sensational virtuoso.
Awesome.
A little Ivesian moment there. That was beautiful.
What pitch is that flute? Was that what? Do you know what pitch Amadio was playing?
Amadio's flute. It's hard to say. It's a 78. It depends how quickly they.
Yeah.
I love the timbre of that flute. Just like I don't know. It sounded really different than what we hear today. It's just that's what I like about instruments this old, is that they really sound like they're from another time to me. So
they are from another time.
You can hear it though, I don't know. I like it.
It's very cool. It takes you back. It sort of like
machine.
reminds you of where it is. It's like a time machine for like the history of flute. It's very cool.
I have two websites. My second one, robertbigio.com, has 36 ancient recordings, including these two I've just played.
Excellent.
There's one recording of Edward de Jong, who recorded these about 1907. He was born in 1837.
Wow.
Absolutely amazing. We think about this.
Right.
When he was born, Brahms was 4. Beethoven and Schubert had been dead 10 years. De Jong's teacher was probably born in the 18th century. Do we have a recording of this guy? It's on my
That's
website.
amazing.
Please go
That's
and
amazing.
Check that out.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you want to mention your other website as well, just so people know that, like you mentioned you have to? Would you like to just tell us what the link is for the other one, or?
One is Bigio.com. That's the one for making instruments. And there's a link
Yeah.
between them anyway.
Yeah, okay.
There's a complicated reason why there are 2, but there are 2.
That's okay. I didn't mean to derail it into complicated. I just thought that it would be good that people knew that there were 2 and knew how to find both of them.
Fabulous. So in our last few minutes, can you is there a way to answer why we all ended up mostly playing Bohm system over some of these other fabulous systems?
That's a very good question. I think it would take another 2 hours to answer.
Well, let's schedule it.
We'll have to have you come back if you're willing to.
It's more complicated than you think. It's why, if you remember videotapes, is why VHS beat Betamax.
Oh, Leonard over Beta? Yeah.
The 1867 system flute, for example, I think is much better.
Mm-hmm.
Not that complicated to maintain either. It's just we're not quite so used to it. But the thing is, only one firm made them. Lots of people made Bohm flutes.
Mm-hmm.
So they were easier to find. More people made them. They were cheaper. You could buy beginner models, and you still can. And that's probably why. What surprises me is that we all play closed G sharp instead of open G sharp, which is so much better.
We know someone who's working on a crusade to change that. So
I'm working on a
David.
crusade to change it.
Well,
David, yes.
yeah, at Trevor James, he's
Yes.
very interested in creating some beginner flutes with open G sharps.
Is Trevor
Yes.
making? Are they?
Yes.
Making?
Yes. They're in. I'm not sure if they have many like readily available, but I've already put in my request for one because I love the open G sharp. I have a wood open G sharp, so I'd love to have a modern one. It'd be very cool. We're gonna change the world. Okay, we're gonna.
We'll change the world one little finger at a time.
One little finger at a time.
One little finger at a time. I think it's wonderful. This has been so great.
This is so fabulous. Is there anything else you'd like to leave us with before we have to go for now?
I wasn't expecting to be talking nonstop for an hour, so.
Okay. Well, it did not feel like an hour from our standpoint, and we would
absolutely
love to have you back for another time, and so we can continue to delve into this, because I feel like we like barely scratched the surface of.
It's so much fun.
Yes, of history and mechanisms, and I mean, just.
It's been terrifying, but I've enjoyed it.
Oh, I'm so glad.
It's great fun.
I'm so glad to hear that.
Well, smiling the whole time, and then my jaw has been on the ground the other.
Yeah, I'm a little sore here. Well, thank you so much, and thank you to everybody who tuned in today. And Robert, this was an absolute delight and a treasure, and like the amount of information you shared with us is just priceless. So thank you so much for your expertise and your time. And yes. All right. Well, great. So thanks to everybody who's watching, and we will see you next time.